Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're completely flipping the script on how you take tests. We're going to treat your next big exam like, well, a strategic heist. The goal, steal back your time, dodge those psychological security lasers, and absolutely maximize your points. Most people just walk into an exam room passively, crossing their fingers and hoping the questions align with what they studied. Not us. We're walking in with a system.
But before we dive into the actual tactics, ask yourself honestly, do you have a strict 90-second mental limit per question when you sit down for a test? Or do you kind of just let the ticking clock dictate your fate? Without a hard boundary, it's incredibly easy to lose 3, 4, maybe even 5 minutes just staring blankly at one awful prompt. That stops today. Let's look at exactly how we take back control of that clock.
Section 1. Mastering the exam clock. Because time is your ultimate opponent and we need a clear playbook to beat it. Moving right into our speed and accuracy techniques, let's formulate some offensive plays to buy back the clock and really buff your score. So imagine shaving 10 to 15 seconds off every single question you face. Over a 50-question exam, that is literally an eternity of extra time you just bought yourself. And you do this through keyword scanning. Instead of reading every single word of some dense, boring paragraph at the exact same pace, you train your eyes. You scan for the core subject, the verbs, and the specific question words. Now, this technique does have a neutral impact on accuracy. It won't magically give you the right answer, unfortunately. But hoarding those precious seconds, that's what gives you the breathing room you absolutely need for the really tough problems later on. Which brings us to our next power-up, option elimination. When you actively cross out answers you know for sure are wrong, you aren't just saving 20 to 30 seconds per question, you're actually boosting your accuracy by up to 10%. Crazy, right? It's because you're mathematically improving your odds. You're lightening the cognitive load on your brain, and you're isolating those nasty trick answers the test makers planted to confuse you. You are essentially forcing the right answer to reveal itself through process of elimination.
Then, we've got the highly effective flag and return strategy. When you hit a brick wall, do not freeze. Flag it and keep moving. That single, simple psychological shift rescues over 60 seconds of wasted time overall, and it tacks on another 2 to 3% accuracy bump. Why? Because it stops that panic response dead in its tracks. It lets your subconscious brain chew on the problem while you're off racking up easy points somewhere else.
So putting all these numbers together, the ultimate takeaway is pretty undeniable. By combining keyword scanning, option elimination, and the flag and return strategy, you are mathematically manipulating the test time in your favor. You take a chaotic sprint and turn it into a calculated, efficient process. It's not about rushing at all. It's about spending your time exactly where it gives you the highest return on investment.
But hey, your offense actually starts way before the timer begins. To cap off this strategy, you need to look at your pre-game prep. Keeping and regularly reviewing an error log of your past mistakes, that actively prevents you from falling into the exact same traps again. In fact, the data shows this habit secures an additional 5% boost to your accuracy shield. Basically, you're learning the specific flavor of your own mistakes so you can spot them from a mile away on test day.
All right, on to our next section, common traps to avoid. Offense is great, but now it's time for some defensive maneuvers to identify the psychological debuffs draining your hard-earned points.
We've all heard this panicked inner monologue, "I'll just scan the options first to see what they want from me." Honestly, it feels like a shortcut. But reading the options before you read the actual question stem, the main body of the prompt, is a massive, incredibly common trap. Why does it hurt you? Because you absolutely guarantee you'll miss nuanced context. The test makers intentionally designed those options to look super appealing out of context, planting seeds of bias in your head before you even know what the question is actually asking.
But look at how easily we can fix this. It just requires a little discipline. Defensively force yourself to read the stem fully first. Understand exactly what the prompt is asking, formulate a rough idea of the answer in your own head, and actually think about it before you look at the options. Do this and you won't get manipulated by tricky distractor answer choices.
Which brings us back to what might be the most devastating trap of all, running out of time because you spent way too long on a single question. The fix here is that 90-second mental limit we teased at the very start of this explainer. If you hit that 90-second wall and you're still completely lost, you've got to cut your losses. Seriously, spending 5 minutes to maybe get 1 point is a terrible trade-off if it means missing out on 3 easy points at the end of the test just because the clock ran out.
And let's be real about this next one, changing your answers repeatedly. Second-guessing yourself completely erodes your confidence as the test goes on. It's just a downward spiral. To avoid this, strictly enforce a personal rule. You are only allowed to change an answer if you find clear, undeniable evidence that your first choice was wrong. If you're just changing it because you feel anxious, take your hands off the mouse, put the pencil down, and trust your initial instinct.
So how does this build into an overarching workflow? Well, a huge trap is wasting your time and mental energy on the most difficult items right out of the gate, leaving you totally exhausted for the simpler stuff. To avoid skipping easy points, follow this precise chronological flow. Step 1. Do the easy questions first. Step 2. Flag the hard questions immediately, with zero guilt. And Step 3. Return to those hard questions later using all that time you just banked.
Finally, we have to address the elephant in the room: panic. Panicking during a difficult section literally, physically impairs your judgment. When that fight or flight response kicks in, your logic just shuts down. The defense here is physiological and tactical. Take deep breaths to regulate your nervous system, temporarily skip the nightmare questions that are triggering you, and only return when your head is clear and you've got some momentum back.
And that leads us to our final section, your ultimate test strategy. We've covered the offensive buffs and defensive debuffs, so let's synthesize this playbook and build that test day mindset.
Consider this your holy grail checklist. Force yourself to read the stem fully. Enforce those strict 90-second limits. Ruthlessly exploit option elimination. Actively use the flag and return strategy for the tough items. Trust your first instincts, unless you have hard evidence otherwise, and do your pre-game work with those error logs. By actively deploying these exact strategies, instead of just passively letting the exam happen to you, it's a real game changer. You transform the test from a terrifying nightmare into a highly manageable, gamified system that you are in total control of.
You've got the blueprints now, you know exactly how to manipulate the clock in your favor, and you know how to dodge those psychological traps the test makers love to lay out for you. So, armed with this playbook, the only question left for you is how much time and how many extra points will you steal back on your very next exam? Go put this into practice, take control of the clock, and we'll see you in the next explainer.